Relationships are all about dopamine hits. Why do I need that? And are there less volatile ways than relationships to get it? That question came from a listener after I joined the Awareness Explorers podcast and discussed alchemy, the practice I discovered for consciously shifting how you feel. This episode of Mind Blind takes a deep dive into why we chase dopamine hits and how alchemy can help us step off that emotional roller coaster. And while we're exploring this, I'll share a story about how driving through an ice storm revealed to me that our mental suffering, the very thing that drives us to distraction and dopamine, is entirely imaginary. Let's dive in. Have you ever sent someone a text, maybe to a new crush or even your partner, and felt that rush of excitement when they replied? Or have you been scrolling social media and seen a like on your post and felt that quick hit of satisfaction? That's dopamine at work, the brain's reward chemical. It's what makes relationships feel exciting and at times addictive. But it's also what makes them volatile. Here's the thing. Who made the rules? Who decided that getting a like or a reply should give us that dopamine hit? If you asked a caveman to press thumbs up on a rock, I doubt he'd feel that little rush of excitement. These rules aren't built into us. They're agreements we've made in our own minds. We've decided where, when, and from whom we'll get our dope. And when our current source of dopamine stops working for whatever reason, we find ourselves wanting more attention, more validation, more of something we can't put our finger on, more dopamine. And we think we need a new source. But dopamine doesn't come from outside of you. It's within you. We've just associated it with external things, people, events, objects. And it's not just dopamine. There's also the so-called love hormone and a whole host of other neurotransmitters that we experience. Our brains are incredible chemistry labs producing these experiences internally. But because we believe these feelings come from outside of us, we're mostly blind to how our own thinking drives them. The truth is this: your mental emotional feelings come from feeling the mind. Whether you're aware of it or not, every emotion you experience is a product of your mind, not the world around you. And that's where alchemy, the shift in state, comes in. It helps you recognize that what you're feeling isn't reality. Instead, you're experiencing a mental emotional product, a kind of mental movie created by different forms of thought. They are images, sounds, videos, mental touch, and even smells and tastes. All experienced not out there in the world, but in your mind. The human mind is brilliant, isn't it? Its whole purpose is designed to simulate, envision, and imagine possibilities. But it doesn't actually touch reality. The mind itself isn't real. It's a tool, not the truth. We all know that. I can ask you to think of a pink elephant, and you'll see one. Not a real one, of course, but you'll see one in your imaginary mind's eye, as we say. But right now, you know it's imaginary. You know it's not real. You see, at some point in our evolution, though, we began mistaking the experience of the mind's inner movies for reality. We started acting as if its stories were true, instead of seeing them for what they are, temporary shows playing in the mind. This misunderstanding is how we fell into what I call dreaming the mind. We began living inside its stories, acting as though we are inside the mind, and as if they were the ultimate truth, and we became blind, first to the presence of the mind, and therefore blind to reality by the mind. And yet, the beauty of the mind is that it's not dependent on reality. Because it's not real and is detached from external circumstances, we have the power to change our mental emotional experience without needing any real world conditions to change. Whether we know it or not, We already do this all the time. We create our inner emotions regardless of our outer circumstances. Even in unimaginable situations, times of extreme suffering, people have found untouchable peace within themselves. I've seen it firsthand. For example, I was fortunate to meet a Holocaust survivor who told me something extraordinary. Despite enduring unspeakable horrors, he held no hatred or resentment toward those who had harmed him. Not because what happened wasn't real, but because he realized something profound. Holding on to hatred would only harm him now. And why would he do that to himself? He was free, truly free. That level of freedom is available to all of us. If peace can be accessed in such unimaginable conditions, imagine what's possible in the everyday challenges that we face. Now, I know this can sound impossible at first. Many people resist this idea when I work with them to get them to shift state. It's not real, they say. It's imaginary. To which I respond, yeah, all emotion is created within and by the mind. It's all made up. None of it requires anything outside of yourself for it to appear in the mind and to be experienced there in the mind. All emotion is made up in the mind and by the mind. All of it. None of it is real. As in, none of it needs any reality outside of the mind or outside of yourself to experience what is an inner experience. You just believe that there's an outer reality you feel. You believe that there's an outer reality and cause to your inner emotions, and that other people give you love or make you hurt. If you look closely at your actual experience, you'll see the truth of this. You will see that your inner thoughts are what you feel, for better or for worse. So, it's all made up, really. And that's okay. It's just how it works. Knowing that, you begin to understand the human body-mind experience. Knowing that frees us from suffering. You are free. So free you can choose to be bound in mental emotional suffering or free yourself from it. Knowing that frees us to act differently in the face of challenges and abuses and even life-threatening experiences. Like the day I was driving in freezing rain, when a red blur shot from behind me on the right, crossed lanes and started spinning directly in front of me. Without a thought, I knew that braking too hard would cause me to lose control, and that braking too softly would result in a collision, which I didn't even want to entertain. Anyway, there was no time. By the time mind can get 2 words out, so much can happen in reality. The last thought I heard was, don't lose control. We can't both lose control. My eyes locked onto the front end of the spinning car, trying to gauge the distance between us, our speeds, and the icy road conditions. All of my attention was funneled into the sensations of the steering wheel, the clutch, the brakes, and the stick shift. Nothing else mattered. This moment is all that matters. This exact moment is all there is. And suddenly, in the midst of the greatest danger of my life, I experienced an extraordinary calm, a profound peace unlike anything I had ever felt before. It was like everything stopped, except nothing but the mind had stopped. I gently tested the brakes, feeling for grip, trying to maintain just enough distance from the spinning car until it stopped, or until whatever was going to happen next. I had no idea what that might be, and I had no fear. There was not a single thought about myself, about the past, or about the future. Even though I was in perilous danger, I was simultaneously in awe and enjoying the radical peace that had enveloped me. The car spun 7 or 8 times in front of me, like a donut, then slid back into the right lane and continued spinning just as wildly. But I didn't let my guard down. I didn't let my attention waver. I focused entirely on my physical senses and maintaining control, gradually slowing down, even as, incredibly, the car swung back into my lane and in front of me again, spinning. I stayed locked on reality, fully present, until finally the car swung back into the right lane, regained control there, and kept driving, as though nothing had happened. And peace prevailed. Until the mind came back online. The first thoughts were, he got control. Then, look at him go. He's not even stopping. For what? Came the knowing of reality. He's fine. But I could have crashed, came the voice of the imaginary. And I could have been killed. And with that, anxiety suddenly exploded like a shockwave. My legs trembled, my feet wobbled on the pedals, and my hands buzzed uncontrollably, shaking so badly I couldn't drive anymore. I had to pull over. The reality was, what am I going to do here? There's nothing to do. You're okay. But the mind was raging. Oh my God, I can't believe he didn't even bother to look back. I'm panicking now, I realized. I didn't panic when there was real danger. Why now? But I wouldn't have wanted to have been panicking then either, unable to drive when there was real danger. That was the reality. My limbs were still shaking and the thoughts screamed, I can't drive. I can't drive, but I had driven then, when it mattered, when in danger, and I was very calm, utterly calm. There was so much confusion now. At the same time, I knew I'd be able to drive again. Call someone, the mind demanded. Reality interjected. And tell them what? That nothing happened? That I'm okay? And get them scared? I alternated between fear and peace, all during the rush of adrenaline, and felt strangely perplexed watching the conflict between my mind and reality play out in real time. Finally, I gave in. I called a friend. And I felt a little silly doing exactly that, telling them that everything was okay and that nothing happened. Just that I was scared. Scared of what? Nothing real. I know that now, and I had just discovered it then. That experience left a deep impression on me. The intense, immense peace I felt in the moment didn't align with the mind's story that I should have been afraid because of something real that was happening. But I wasn't. And that's when I saw it. It isn't reality that makes us afraid. It's the imaginary. It wasn't the storm and the car outside that caused my fear. It was the storm inside. And that's the lesson. It's not reality that makes us afraid or unhappy. It's the imaginary. Since it's not the outside that makes us afraid or hurt, it's also not the outside that makes us happy. And we don't want things, people, or events. We want the feeling we mistake them for. Using alchemy, you can give it to yourself anytime so that you don't make yourself unhappy. Because if you didn't make yourself unhappy on the inside in the first place, you wouldn't go seeking relief outside. Here's a simple way to demonstrate this. Pick up a pen and tap it repeatedly on the same spot on your finger. Annoying, right? Keep going, because soon, you'll notice, it becomes painful. Now stop. How good does it feel to stop? That relief you just felt didn't come from dopamine or from anything external. It came from stopping the discomfort you were creating. We hardly ever notice this, but it's the same with mental emotional suffering. The relief comes from stopping what we are doing to cause mental pain, not from the dopamine hit or the relationship. And yet we think the other person or thing gave us that relief. It's just a trick of the mind. When we seek dopamine through relationships, it's like two people tapping pens on their fingers, hoping the other will stop the pain. but they can't because they're not causing it. After you stop hitting yourself with thoughts, you might notice that good feeling thoughts feel, well, good. And not because they're true or not. It's just because that's how they feel. If we stop creating suffering in our minds, we stop chasing outer relief. Our happiness stabilizes. It's our natural state. We overflow with love instead of needing it. And that changes how we approach relationships and who we choose to be in relationship with. So, are there less volatile ways than relationships to get a dopamine hit? Addictions, which are cycles of feeling bad, getting a hit, having a temporary high, and then feeling bad again, are a volatile way to try to get anything because you never actually get resolution. You're never satisfied, and you just get continual craving. The basis and beginning of all addictions is pain, and we can use anything in reality to temporarily get imaginary relief. We've seen humanity use everything from substances to self-harm to harming others to get imaginary relief. If something outside of you was really the solution, after just one encounter, you'd be cured, right? And that's just not the way of it, is it? Don't be fooled. So, do you need dopamine? No. But when you stop creating unhappiness in the first place, you'll stop thinking and feeling like you do. It's the deluded and confused ways we go about trying to extract happiness from others, things, or events, which is impossible. You can't get blood from a stone. Since it's nothing outside that makes us hurt or happy, then we don't actually want dopamine, other drugs, or outer things, people, or events. We want the feeling we mistake them for. Using Alchemy, you can give yourself the feeling anytime. Then you won't believe in or seek outer relief. You can free yourself. And when you do, you'll be so full of love that you have infinite love to give. If you nurture happiness this way, you'll quit seeking outer dopamine hits. You just won't even think of them. You'll have no reason to. We seek happiness and love because we are love, and there's nothing wrong with wanting our own happiness. But real happiness isn't something to be attained, taken, or found. It's something to be uncovered because it's buried, but within you and already yours. And when you stop chasing love, validation, or relief outside of yourself, you'll realize something profound. You are what you've been looking for. And that changes everything. Up next, if you don't know yet that love is what you are, it's because you have other ideas about who you are. Join me next time as we explore consciousness and your true self. P.S. Ramana Maharshi said, "Happiness is your nature. It's not wrong to desire it. What is wrong is seeking it outside when it's inside."